Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just got some questions for the bill author. I'm going to try to move quickly because I know a lot of people have questions. Earlier you mentioned that federal border officials had failed. You called them a failure or their actions a failure. You also pointed to federal officials not accounting for 85,000 unaccompanied minors. Is the purpose of, so let me ask this, do you think CBP has failed? Customs and Border Enforcement, or CBP? Have they failed?
I think they've not been given the resources and the mission to do their job.
You called them a failure earlier for, in response to the Chairman Turner's question. Do you think ICE has failed?
I think if you are measuring success by the number of people who cross illegally and the amount of deadly fentanyl that's coming through
Do you think ICE has
borders,
failed?
then it has not been a success.
Do you think ICE has failed?
I think that the entire border situation is a failure at this point.
Okay, so the federal government, you believe, has failed at the border?
I think there is an absolute failure at the border.
So you think, and that would include ICE, CBP, and Border Patrol. You termed that a failure earlier. You would agree with that, right?
I think that the individuals that are wearing that uniform, that are out on the front lines, the rank and file, are doing their job to the best of their ability. And every day that they go to work, they wish that they had more support and more resources.
Since I only have till 10, I'd appreciate just direct answers to the questions if possible. What's that?
You gonna take the whole time?
I don't understand your question.
Till 10. You said you got till 10. I thought the rest of us had a little bit of time.
No,
Oh, never mind. Go ahead, AG.
Go ahead, Representative.
Representative Dean, just in response to Representative Dean, since he wanted to chime in, since we, as members of this committee, only have till 10,
You had till 10. Excuse me.
since we, as members of the committee, only have till 10, I'm just going to try to have this dialogue, but I appreciate the comment. So is the purpose of HB20 to enact a state parallel law because of this federal government failure so that Texans can prevent illegal border crossings?
The purpose of HB20 is to provide security to the people of Texas.
Is the purpose of HB20 to enact a state law parallel to the federal immigration law?
You can describe it how you want to. I describe it how I want to.
I'm just asking, is it yes or is it no?
The purpose of this bill is to assert the state of Texas' constitutional authority to defend the sovereignty of our state and protect our citizens.
Given that your earlier statement about the federal government failing, I want to follow up on that as well. Is it your intent, again, trying to get to your intent of HB20, that the Texas Border Protection Unit officers will not operate under the direction or control of federal immigration officers? So in other words, will they be under CBP? Will they be under Border Patrol?
These officers will comply with federal law as written and as interpreted by the courts.
Is it your intent that they will not operate under, that they will operate separate from CBP or Border Patrol?
You're asking me an implementation question, and I'm in the legislature and I'm not in the executive. That would be an implementation question for...
Well, no, I'm asking you for your intent. You have an intent about this. What is your intent?
The intent is to provide the statutory tools for the governor to implement the bill.
Gotcha. But what is your intent as the bill author? Is it that they
I've stated
work
my
under?
intent.
Your intent is to let the governor do it?
To give the governor the full authority under the Constitution.
Under HB20's authorization of BPU officers to, quote, arrest, apprehend, detain, or deter, end quote, a little further down, quote, persons crossing the U.S.-Mexico border unlawfully, end quote, BPU officers will determine whether that individual is crossing the border unlawfully. Is that right?
There's a section of the bill that says where a person
411 spot 559, right?
has been actually observed crossing illegally.
But the BPU officers make that determination, right?
I think that they will make that determination
Okay.
under the Constitution.
Under House Bill 20's authorization of BPU officers to arrest, apprehend, detain, or deter persons crossing unlawfully, the BPU officers will decide which people to arrest, correct?
They will.
And that's 411-559 as well.
They will make they will make the decisions based on the authority that's been given them.
On who to arrest, right?
They will make that decision based on the training and orders.
So they make
that
that
have been given.
decision on who to arrest. Under HB 20's authorization of BPU officers to arrest, detain, or deter, will they be able to arrest individuals and hold them in state custody? Will they?
They're going to have the authority to stop people who have crossed the river illegally
And hold them in state custody?
and detain them.
And hold them in state custody? Will they be in the custody of the state? Thank you.
They
I think
would
you
be,
just said
yes.
yes. Under House Bill 20's authorization of BPU officers to deter and repel persons attempting to enter this state unlawfully and return aliens to Mexico, BPU officers will decide who to repel or return to Mexico, correct?
They will be
That is within their purview.
interdicting people who have been observed violating the law.
But do they decide who to repel or return to Mexico?
They would.
Okay. Is it correct that the committee substitute removes the language about acting consistently with, quote, federal immigration laws from section 411-564, which grants the power to BPU officers to deter, repel, arrest, and return individuals? You said earlier it would be consistent with federal law, but then you remove the language about federal immigration law from section 411-564, correct?
It's not necessary to have the language.
Why'd you take it out?
Because the Constitution already requires compliance with federal immigration law. Article 6 of the Constitution, the Supremacy Clause, makes federal immigration statutes the supreme law of the land.
Okay,
It
so it's
compels
your intent that they would,
Can I finish my answer?
yeah, but is your intent that they would comply with federal immigration law, correct?
Yes.
Okay, even though you took that out. Does the finding of imminent danger in the bill constitute a legislative finding that a state of invasion or imminent danger under Section 10, Article 1 of the United States exists, and that triggers the authority of the BPU chief to order removals of persons? Does that constitutional finding give the BPU chief an opportunity to order removals?
What it does is it says if you have a finding under Article 1, Section 10, that at some point that self-defense provision of the Constitution may make some aspect of federal immigration law inoperative in that moment because you're in a different part of the Constitution.
Okay, but that, in setting up this BPU chief, they're operating under that provision of the Constitution?
If the legislative finding has been made,
And that finding is in fact present in your bill, correct?
it is.
Okay, so I take that answer to be yes. In his testimony before the Senate Border Security Committee on March 16, 2023, Attorney General Paxton stated, quote, Arizona tried to pass laws similar to what the federal government passed, end quote, but, quote, unfortunately, the court ruled by saying that the state couldn't step in and pass these laws, end quote. Is the purpose of HB 20 to enact state border protection laws and challenge the ruling of Arizona versus Arizona versus United States, that states can't step in and pass these laws? Is that your intent?
The intent of the bill is to assert the authority of the state of Texas under the United States Constitution.
So you're saying that is not your intent for this to be a test case to challenge Arizona versus U.S.?
Those are your words. I told
asking-
you what my intent for the bill is.
Okay, so I'm asking you, yes, if it is your intent, or no, if it is not your intent. Is it your intent that this be used as a vehicle for Texas to obtain a reversal of Arizona v. U.S.? Is that your intent as the bill author?
My intent is to assert the rights of the state of Texas under Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution.
Gotcha. In his testimony before the Senate Border Security Committee on March 16, 2023, Attorney General Paxton stated with respect to the preemption principle articulated in Arizona v. U.S., quote, the only way I know to do this is to test it, and we've got a couple of ideas on how to do that. Your bill does that. There may be other ways that we can also test it to find out where the court is and find out what the parameters of that decision are. Is the purpose of HB 20 to enact a law similar to federal law that will test the preemption article articulated in Arizona versus US? Do you agree with the Attorney General there?
Representative Archie, I've already given you my answer multiple times. As to
Well, let me ask you, do you agree with the Attorney General there?
I'm not going to speak to the Attorney General's.
But do you
I
agree
wasn't
with-
there for his comments. I don't know the context of it. I'm not going to answer
I
that.
just read them to you. Do you agree with them?
I'm not going to answer that. I don't know the context of what he was
Okay.
talking about.
I'll skip down here. In his testimony before the Senate Border Security Committee on March 16, 2023, Attorney General Paxton stated, comparing now to the Arizona versus U.S. decision, quote, we've got different Supreme Court justices, and, quote, we've got a different court and the best chance we've ever had to overturn that finding is the purpose of HB20 for Texas to challenge Arizona versus Texas before a different set of U.S. Supreme Court judges.
Mr. Anchia, you can ask the same question 100 different ways, and I'm going to give you the same answer I gave you before.
Which was non-responsive, but I'm asking you your intent as a bill author. Is there a reason you're being cagey and coy and not wanting to answer?
I've answered your question.
Yeah, you have not answered my question, but I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Did you have a question, Representative Dean?
Well, I think he had his light on first.
Are you sure?
Well, no, you had raised the issue,
Yeah, go ahead.
but I am going to stop you all, so you better not filibuster after 10.
I think
If the audience have to
think the
follow my
filibuster's
lines,
already-
you all are going to follow.
I think the filibuster's already taken place, but that's okay.
Go ahead.